Hello, I'm Galip Dalai, Research Director at Sharq Forum. Today in Washington, D.C., I have Emad Shahin, who is Hasib Sabbah Distinguished Chair in Arabic and Islamic Studies at Georgetown University. Emad, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Recently, there has been an important development in Tunisia. The Ennahda party has its congress, and in which Rashid Ghannouchi has once again emerged as the chairman of the party. But an important development took place. Ghannouchi said that we are separating Islam, in a sense, political Islam, from our daily politics. We no longer are going to use the word political Islam. We no longer are going to define ourselves as Islamists. Rather, we are the best can be described as Muslim Democrats, and there will be separation between Dawa or larger movement and the party. How important, first, how real is this declaration, and second, how important are they?
Well, I'll start with the second part of the question.
Sure.
I think it is very important because a transformation of the Islamic movement is very much needed based on the particular circumstances of each country. Our perception of the Islamic movement as a holistic trend that has to be assessed and treated and evaluated in every country the same way, I think it has to be reconsidered. I'm sure that the Ennahda movement has assessed the situation based on what they saw best fit their particular circumstances and the political evolution, the political stage at which Tunisia is going through at the moment. What it represents to me in terms of importance is, aside from, of course, the emotional and the sentimental response, the first sentimental response about the separation between dawah and politics, and that will affect dawah and politics, as if we are separating between religion and state, and on all this kind of really construct that to a large extent inspired by, influenced by certain Western experiences. So what it means to me is a needed transformation for the Islamic movements from politics to policies, meaning specialization, meaning focus, meaning migrating from focusing on ideological frameworks, conceptual frameworks, into project-based, issue-based politics. The issue-based politics, the project-based politics is what we call policies that really focus on the needs of the population. And this in itself is a reflection of part of the Islamic message and part of any reform movement, be it Islamic or non-Islamic, that society needs in order to address its current issues, current problems, and so on. I'm sure many people will look at this as a diversion from the conventional trajectory of Islamic politics or the politics of Islamic movements. I think this, in my view, will lead to more specialization and more perfection in terms of the division of labor within the Islamic movement itself. Because this ambiguous state of the Islamic movement of being a da'wah-based or a political-based or social-based is, I think, in many cases has adversely hurt the perception of the Islamic movement within the elements of society itself. I will take an example and then conclude with it. We'll take the example because this is not the only. It's of course a special project, but it has precedence elsewhere. Turkey, for example, the AK party and its evolution from the Rafah party and so on, and its movement or migration from grand ideologies, grand perceptions into very realistic project-based, policy-based politics. Same thing about the Justice and Development Party in Morocco. There is a separation between the two. Another movement that, for example, the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, that refused to make that separation. I look at it as division of labor, specialization, because Islam and politics are inherently intertwined. Even if you say, for example, as a head of a movement, I separated between religion, it will not fly because it is inherently inseparable. So the movement was like Muslim Brotherhood, for example, in Egypt. We see that this lack of separation, lack of specialization, I think partially was one of the factors that hurt the movement itself.
From your answer, two concepts was particularly very important to me. One of them, when you say this, in a sense, moving away from this holistic approach. The second one, moving away from being all politics to more policies.
Yes.
When you say moving away from this holistic approach, do you mean that separation of public and private sphere and separation of individual and political level? Like, could you please, a bit more explain on this?
Right. We are talking about practice now. We are talking about Islamists, actors, agents. I'm not talking about religion or Islam and that.
Sure.
Exactly.
Islam,
so when I say, for example, holistic, meaning grand ideologies that are not realistic, are not attainable at the moment. For example, like grand ideologies. For example, I'm talking about, for example, the unity, pan-Islam, the unity of the Islamic nation. That could be a strategic goal. Very legitimate. You can have it in your program. The re-establishment of the caliphate, very legitimate. You can have it in your program. But from that point today, given your potential, your capacity, your ability to achieve that objective, until you attain that goal, there are baby steps, if you wish, transitional phases that the Islamic movements have to master and have to go through in order to achieve the end result. In most cases, we are really, meaning, for example, I talk maybe some Egyptians or many Egyptians or some Islamists or whatever, we are really fond of this kind of, from to. But like from dependency to independence, from weakness to greatness. But the baby steps, the policies, the project-oriented approach through which the process you can achieve this strategic goal is usually ambiguous and holistic, because usually we look into the mobilizational factors into this. Now, the other thing is from politics to policies. What I mean from politics to policies, because thank you for giving me the opportunity to explain. Look at how many Muslim intellectuals have written the Islamic constitution, the principles of the Islamic state, the nature of the Islamic state. That's politics. But when it comes to the policies of the Islamic state, how the Islamic state will tackle the issue of health, how the Islamic state will economy, health, education, unemployment. These are the policies that actually need to resonate, that people are looking forward to receiving from so-called Islamic movements and Islamic parties. That's what I mean.
Exactly. This transformation, again, is it from outside, when you look at it, is it the product of an ideological and intellectual transformation, or is it the Ennahda's response to unfavorable circumstances, meaning that prospect of state repression, looking at the Egyptian case, and trying to survive within a system that is hostile to it?
Excellent.
So is it more an ideological one, or is it a response to unfavorable external circumstances? And based on these questions, how real is it then?
Excellent. This is an excellent question. This is what I can call a realistic, objective reading of the status quo, of the conditions that surrounds the movement itself, the level of acceptance, level of popularity, the readiness of society for accepting certain ideals, the ability of the state to cooperate with a newcomer that has been characteristically and for years an outsider. Compare the case of Egypt and the state and how it responded to the Muslim Brotherhood when they legitimately won elections, and in other cases, for example. This is, the state becomes really, it goes into a stage of rebellion against the outsiders, even though they won elections and so on. So it's based on realistic reading. It's also based on an assessment of the evolution, we call it maturity, of the movement itself at certain stage, and the need for that movement to respond to the surrounding reality. I don't know much about the hostility, but definitely I was in Tunisia recently. I visited Tunisia, and I think it's very realistic, it's very positive that the Ennahda movement or the Ennahda party in Tunisia is reading or assessing its weight in society objectively. This is very important for the survival of the movement, and also for setting the objective, the short-term and medium-term goals that the movement needs to achieve in order to gain more popularity, structure votes, and move forward in the political process.
Sure. The last question: how is this process likely to have impact on the political Islam beyond Tunisia?
It's definitely an important transformation that many analysts have observed more than a decade ago, when they start talking about post-Islamism. And here the key is not Islam, so I don't get misunderstood. The key word is Islamism, the view of Islam as a vehicle for social and political change. That's totally different from Islam itself, meaning that looking at your agency as an individual, as a Muslim, in the process, and your participation in the process of social change as part of the faith, that's something really 20th century, 21st century phenomenon. In the way it has been reconstructed, it's there. I can narrate hadith, the enjoining good, forbidding evil. It's there. But the idea of using the faith as a vehicle for social change and political change, that's in a kind of a grassroots level. That's something new. So many analysts start to talk about the phenomenon of post-Islamism. They accept the careful and the well-calculated reading of reality, the balance of powers in society, your capacity and potential, how much you can do in that given the circumstances, abandoning grand ideologies, holistic ideologies that refer to the beyond your capacity even to implement. So what you end up doing is you are really mobilizing the population, you are selling hope, raising the expectations, and delivering very little. And we've seen the cases for this, even when the opportunity came.
Thank you very much, Ustaz Emad Shahin. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for having me.